I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Calistoga. It's a regularly scheduled meeting. It is Tuesday, April 7th, 2015. It is 7 p.m. City Manager Spittler, has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
City Clerk Flamson, could we have the roll call, please?
Councilmember Lopez Ortega, Councilmember Barnes,
Here.
Councilmember Kraus,
Here.
Vice Mayor Dunsford, Mayor Canning.
Here, thank you very much. Please join me all with a salute to the flag. Mind, there is no allotment of your time to another speaker. All speakers are held to a maximum of 3 minutes per person per topic. And as strongly as you may feel about your position on a matter, please respect that somebody else may feel just as strongly on the opposite side of that matter. So we treat all comments with respect. We will start with oral communication on consent items or non-agendized items. This time is set aside to receive comments from the public regarding matters on the consent calendar or matters of municipal concern that are not on the agenda. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, also known as the Brown Act. However, the council cannot consider any issue or take action on any request during this comment period. Speakers are encouraged to limit their comments to a maximum of 3 minutes so that all speakers have an opportunity to address the City Council. I will begin with the 2 speaker cards I've received, and if somebody hasn't had the opportunity or chose not to, I will proceed from there. Frederick Lancaster, no D. Should you so choose, sir, please share with us your name, which I've done, and your address, but you are not required to do so.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, honorable city employees and friends. My name is Frederick Lancaster. I live at 216 High Street. And I've been reflecting upon, at this time of the year, this week, we collectively as Americans celebrate and partake in a ritual that has gone back to the starting of our country. And I wonder if you know what I'm addressing. But that is, of course, next week we pay our state and federal taxes to our democracy to make our civil society happen. Civil society is funded by our state and government taxes, and it's provided the great largesse that has made America one of the tremendous civil societies in history. It is only through the valiant contributions that we as individuals and as corporations make to this country that has brought this society to the level of development that it has. See, our tax funds have gone to provide for everything from public education from our youngest to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid to the social safety net. And locally, it has gone to provide this magnificent valley through the valiant efforts of those that have sought to preserve the valley in perpetuity. In reflection over the past many years, however, this civil agreement that we have between one another is dramatically threatened by a movement that does not want to pay their fair share, that would rather not pay taxes to that democracy and to our civil society, and that movement is known as conservatism. And in the words of the great conservative leader, if I use that term loosely, Grover Norquist would like to starve the beast. That means to starve our public education, our health care, our safety net. And indeed, this movement of conservatism is, I think, the most magnanimous threat to our democracy, as shown by the case of Citizens United, where politicians now can basically receive untold, unlimited, and undefined sources of funding. And of course, we can see the threat of that, what I consider to be greedy old politics, or we could consider it a GOP, greedy old people having a not that clear distinction between self-interest, self-individual economic interest, and the rights of our society and our democracy. Democracy must be distinct from corporate power and corporate profit and corporate private gain. And so I have a tremendous concern here as a resident of Napa Valley that we may be seeing the influence of people from afar, potentially a billionaire from China, and having an undue effect on our valley and our beauty here. And I ask that we have that as a reflection over the next week as we pay toward our civil society and this great democracy. God bless America. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Doug Cook, I believe you have a public comment and agenda items as well, correct? Have I read that correctly? Thank you, sir. Please share with us your name and your address should you so choose.
Doug Cook, 1447 2nd Street. My oral comments this morning, or the evening, address the minutes, consent calendar. I have a general question for the mayor and city council and some specific examples of my concern. Minutes of meetings held by the council are recorded, taped, shown live TV, etc. Is that a reason why it seems to me that the minutes of those meetings as presented in our packages of information are seemingly becoming less and less informative? The classic example is this week's package of minutes related to the two meetings regarding the budget, identifying goals, etc. The 4 hours of meetings, I saw nothing that was specific. Specifically, there was Mr. Spittler makes a presentation and then discussion ensued. That language is used multiple times, and I'm very sorry I was not able to attend those meetings, and I was hoping to learn about the process. And I don't see that it exists there. So the only thing I can see is that we have other sources of information, but I still think the written word is a strong source of information. And,
If you have other questions, ask them now, and then I'll answer at the end of this.
okay.
Okay?
Regarding those meetings, I didn't see anything in the minutes that dealt with the issue of income or outgo. I did see one reference to the fact that the state of the city's finances were discussed, but no discussion of income or outgo. And I'm speaking specifically to concerns regarding assumptions that the city councilman and mayor may make in terms of looking at income from TOT, specifically from one new resort that's opened past year and two that have not. Similarly, with regard to in lieu payments from a resort that we were hoping to see make payments 2014, but I just understand that they have not gotten to the point where they need to make payments. So I'm wondering what the assumptions were. It would be useful to me with regard to more additional detail is to find out who made a suggestion to include an action item or a one of your specific projects references. I know we're going to be talking about that report later on, so I won't get into the details, but that's, to the minutes point of view, that would be useful. Was there any back and forth that were any more controversial than others? Those kinds of questions, I think, would be useful to the public. And before I throw stones, I will recognize that I live in a glass house on my failure to attend those. I was very disappointed in general that there was one public comment at the two meetings, 3 different opportunities to make comments, and that's one issue. Secondly, that person's input should have been recorded. What were they speaking about? Thank you.
Thank you. Regarding minutes, we've chosen, as most city councils have, to use our written minutes as more of an action summary. We have several means by which people can see exactly what happens at these meetings. First, as you know, they're all televised. Second, they're all recorded. And third, we went through great pains and a little bit of expense to make all of our recorded meetings, both Planning Commission, I believe, as well as City Council, available upon demand on YouTube. So you can, which you can link to through our website. So you can get exactly what we said, what was said or wasn't said, through that format. Regarding the income outgoing, when we went through the budget presentations, not only was that meeting recorded, but all of our financial data is completely open to the public and transparent. Our budgets are available online as well. Shows all revenues in, all revenues out. And then when we talk about projections for the following year, we talk, it's clearly detailed what projections we've assumed and which ones we've moved, using as an example the Silver Rose project, for example. We've chosen to, on consensus basis, as we go into the budget process, to remove impact fees from that project until the next fiscal year, which, as most of you know, starts July 1st. So between watching it on TV, getting it YouTubed, I don't see a need for, not to mention there would be an incredible expense if we were to actually have direct transcripts as they would do in a court of law, because the video works out best.
I would just add, at these workshops, the council doesn't not make any decisions. It's informal discussion. That's why the goals and objectives are brought before this meeting for the public to review prior to them formally adopting.
I'd also like to mention that there is a publicly available council packet that covered the financial data that was presented to the council. The slideshow that Ms. Leon presented was available to the public before the meeting as well, both online and written at the back of the room, just like the agenda is here. So, other than holding a seance, I don't know how else we could force the public to pay attention to what we're doing, and I think we're doing a pretty good job at bringing out the information that we're going to consider and doing it in a public method.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
We're also having the budget workshops coming up and public hearings on that, so there's a lot of detail there coming down the line.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. I have no more speaker cards, but if there's anyone who would like to address the council on any matter that is on the consent calendar or not an agendized item, please make yourself known at this time. Otherwise, I will be closing oral communication, and I will seek a motion for adoption of the meeting agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Barnes. I have a second by Councilmember Kraus. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Council requests and ideas for discussion. Tonight we will start with Councilmember Lopez Ortega.
Yeah, this is a question to the city manager, Mr. Splitter. I've been receiving phone calls from people and that they say they've been applying for to occupy the new apartments, and the majority of applications they've been denied. So I wonder if how can we follow up in that?
Yeah, we can look into that. I'm certain that we had more applications than we could possibly, it's only 48 units, and over the counter at the planning department, I think we had over 120 people sign up. And we sent that forward to the Corporation for Better Housing, which then they apply the criteria, which is federal criteria, to qualify people. And some people make too much money. Some people don't have jobs. Some people don't have good credit. They have all these criteria that they apply. But we've been trying to find out who moved in there. What I hear is 90% of the residents are Calistogans that are moving in. They're starting to move in this week. So I'll get more information on that best I can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Barnes.
Yes, I've got one thing. I too have received some phone calls, not about the housing, but about double parking of water trucks Down in front of Crystal Geyser, I have spoken to our city manager and I have spoken to our police chief about it. They're looking into it. But I just want the public to know that we hear you when you complain. We're going to do something about those water trucks using our right-of-way, the city's right-of-way, for the conduct of their business. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kraus.
Well, this kind of goes along with the new apartments that have begun to be occupied on Washington Street on, I believe it was Saturday, this last weekend. My wife and I strode through the place and looked it on over, and it is a fine complex there. They look like they spared very little expense to do things that are green and pleasant to see, and with having the park right next door to the family apartments there, what a wonderful opportunity for the kids to. There's a gap in the fence there that so they can go right into the park to play, and it's close to the swimming pool for this summer. So I think it's a great opportunity. I noticed some kids playing over there today and yesterday, so I'm glad we have that here in town.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Dunsford.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. I have two items. Number one, the community forum for the month of April, which would have been April 15th, tax day, is canceled. And we'll look at holding one for the month of May. And then, not to put him on the spot, but Director Kern, I understand that the Cedar Street Bridge at Willow Street is closed. Do we know how long that is for? The footbridge that goes to Cedar Street Extension.
Where the tree fell down.
Ah, okay.
Context.
Well, there's only one of those bridges that I'm aware of at that address.
So, Mike Kern, Public Works Department, last night we had a tree fall due to the wind and saturated soil. It's fairly large, heritage oak. We've engaged a tree vendor to give us a quote to remove that. I'm hoping that they'll be able to start tomorrow, but it will probably take the better part of 3 or 4 days to get it out of there, maybe a little bit longer. Been in communication with our insurance carrier, Parsec. Open claim. Not sure what the total damage will be. Of $5,000. We're on it. So again.
As you are well aware, it is a heavily traveled thoroughfare. And we don't want to give kids another reason not to make it to school on time, right? All right. We'll move on to proclamations, presentations, and awards. And the first one we have is a presentation by Belinda Ruiz from the board, who's the board with the Board of Parents Can. Is Belinda here? Welcome to Calistoga.
Good evening. My name is Belinda Ruiz, and I'm the Parent Engagement Coordinator for Parents Can. We are a public benefit corporation or organization. So basically what that means is that we are a nonprofit, and we exist to provide resources to the families. We are unique in that we provide services to families who have children with special needs. And that could either be a mental health need, a behavioral health need, a health need, or a developmental disability. We work in various different programs as far as education. We help families access medical care, connect them to therapists or whatever services their families may need. And at our organization, we believe that parents are the best advocates for their children. So we work on the strengths of the family and we help build upon that. And like I said, our services are specialized depending on the needs of the family. Families come to us for different reasons. Sometimes we get parents that come to us because their child is 5 years old or 3 and they're not yet speaking. So we do developmental screenings for children under the age of 5. For children over the age of 5, we do referrals to other organizations for assessments or evaluations. And tonight we wanted to give recognition to one of the families here in Calistoga that has benefited from our programs and services. The family that is here with us tonight is the Padilla Cerón household. Socorro Padilla and Miguel Ángel Cerón, they are here today. They have a child, Saul, who is 5 years old, and he has osteogenesis imperfecta type 3. It's a condition in which the collagen doesn't develop correctly in the bones, and it causes extremely brittle bones. So in the case of Saul, you have to be extremely careful because anything such as a touch or even a hug can break his bones. And so the family has made an a lot of progress. When Socorro came to us, she had explained to me that it was very difficult for her to accept the condition of her child. A lot of the times that happens when parents come to us, they're very afraid. They don't know what to expect. And by receiving services with us, she was able to get the services that she needed. She was able to accept the condition of her child. She's now very much involved, not just with our organization, but also in the city of Calistoga. She's secretary for the ELAC organization. She's actively involved in the education of her children, because aside from Saul, she has 2 other children. And whenever she has the opportunity, she participates in all of our workshops. She just recently graduated from a parent leadership training that we did at our organization. And she's an inspiration to the families here in Calistoga and to all of the families that have children with special needs.
Thank you. I see Saul out in the community a lot. Could you share with, sorry, you come back to the podium. Could you share with us either a phone number or a website? We do have a pretty big audience at home, so slowly and into the mic.
Okay, so our website is www.parentscan.org. If families have questions or they're having an issue or a concern regarding their child, they can call us. The number is 707-253-7444.
Thank you. And if you have materials to leave in the back, that'd be great as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I would like to thank you and your organization for all the wonderful work you do. My family has been affected by this same disease. I have a brother who has osteogenesis imperfectus Ray. And as a child, when he was growing up, he received this kind of help. We lived in Wisconsin back then, and I am happy to say my brother today is healthy and he's 66 years old. So there is hope.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to a presentation of a proclamation announcing April 19th through the 25th is National Crime Victims' Rights Week. And I think we have Yuko Kamishi. Could you approach the podium? I'll read the proclamation, and then I'll share it with you. And if you have a few words to share with us, that'd be great. City of Calistoga Proclamation, National Crime Victims' Rights Week, April 19th to April 25th, 2015. Whereas in 1981, President Reagan first declared Crime Victims' Rights Week to help focus the nation's attention on the impact of crime on victims, and whereas crime imposes devastating emotional, physical, financial, spiritual, and social impact not only on victims and survivors, but also their family members, friends, neighbors, schools, and the entire community, and whereas this year's theme, Engaging Communities, Empowering Victims, emphasizes the role of the entire community individually and collectively to provide the necessary support, assistance, protection, and safety as victims and survivors of crime cope with the short and long-term consequences of crime. And whereas the Napa County District Attorney's Office, Victim Services Division, is joining forces with the victim services providers, criminal justice agencies, and concerned citizens throughout the County of Napa and America to raise awareness of victims' rights and observe National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Now, therefore, I, Chris Canning, as Mayor of the City of Calistoga, do hereby proclaim the week of April 19th through 25th as National Crime Victims' Rights Week and affirm Calistoga's commitment to respect and enforce victims' rights and address their needs during National Crime Victims' Rights Week and throughout the year, and express our appreciation for those victims and crime survivors who have turned personal tragedy into a motivating force to improve our response to victims of crime and build a more just community. Signed, Chris Canning, Mayor of the City of Calistoga. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Yuka Kamishi, Victim Services Manager at the Napa County District Attorney's Office. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and City Council members for proclaiming April 19th through 25th as National Crime Victims' Rights Week. Your proclamation is an important component for us to educate crime victims for services that they have locally and nationally, as well as their rights that they can assert. A little bit about what we do. The last year, victim advocates at the DA's office assisted over 1,500 crime victims. And thanks to community resources that we have, such as Calistoga Police Department, Napa Emergency Women's Services, which I see Araceli, the sexual assault victim advocate here in the room today. And we work together to assess their needs and wants and let them know how the criminal justice system works, help them understand and navigate that confusing system, and advocate for them. In addition to serving victims, we try to reach out to different communities within Napa County, including Calistoga, and let them know about victims' rights as well as victim services in the community. Our joint effort will encourage our community to build safer communities, and I thank you for the proclamation. And on behalf of District Attorney Gary Lieberstein, I sincerely thank you once again.
Thank you very much for the work you guys do down there. We appreciate it.
Oh, I also brought some of the brochures that explain our services, as well as the bookmarks that have our phone number, which I can tell you. The Victim Services phone number is 707-299-1414. And the website is countyofnapa.org/DA, and you should be able to check our website.
Thank you very much, and you can leave your materials on the table in the back. Thank you for being here. Item number 3 is a presentation of a proclamation announcing April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This month of April 2015 is Sexual Assault Awareness Month in California and throughout the United States. This year's campaign is dedicated to creating safer campuses through campus sexual violence prevention and healthy sexuality. It's time to proclaim our commitment to safer campuses and brighter futures. It's time to act. Safer campuses, brighter futures, prevent sexual violence. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is intended to draw attention to the fact that healthy sexuality means having the knowledge and power to express sexuality in ways that enrich our lives. It's about every person being able to make consensual, respectful, and informed choices. There is no room for pressure, violence, or control. We will challenge unhealthy messages and stereotypes on campus, in our culture, and the media. We will use our voices to counter misrepresentations and promote respect. And whereas we will use our voices to share information and skills to support sexual violence, prevention, and healthy sexuality on campus, learn from one another, and model the respect and safety we all deserve. We will connect with resources to empower us to build healthy relationships and healthy futures. For over 33 years, Sexual Assault Victim Services, a program of news, has led the way in promoting healthy sexuality and prevention of sexual violence on campus by providing 24-hour hotline services to survivors and their significant others, offering prevention, education, responding to emergency calls, and by offering support and comfort to those impacted by sexual assault during forensic medical exams, all criminal proceedings, and empowering those impacted by sexual assault to chart their own course for healing. Whereas News Sexual Assault Victim Services for Napa County requests public assistance as it continues to offer to create a future where all women, men, and children can live free from violence and exploitation. With leadership, dedication, and encouragement, there is evidence that we can be successful in promoting healthy sexuality and preventing sexual violence in the city of Calistoga and throughout Napa County. Now, therefore, I let it be resolved that I, Chris Canning, Mayor of the City of Calistoga, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2015 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Calistoga, and I commend this observance to all citizens. Signed, Chris Canning, Mayor, City of Calistoga. I think we have Araceli Vargas here. You'll share with us some of the other happenings this month and what your organization does.
Thank you so much for this proclamation. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about our services. I'm an advocate, and I've been doing this kind of job for 15 years. And so I'm one of the persons who goes out in the middle of the night with victims of sexual assault or domestic violence. And I wanted to give you a little bit of one of our statistics that we have. In 2004, we had 265 victims served, all of Napa County. That includes Calistoga, American Canyon, and all over. Some of the victims we had 0 to 17, we had 126 victims. 18 to 24 years, we had 29. 25 to 59, we had 72. And 60 and plus, we had 2 victims. And then we also have unknown 36 victims. So total, 265 in the year of 2014. Thank you so much. I also have some information that I'm going to leave in the back that, of some events that we're having for this month of April. I believe that will be it.
Do you have a website or a phone number you'd like to
Yes,
recite?
we do. Our phone number is 707-252-3687, and our website is www.napanews.org. Thank you.
Thank you for your organization's work up here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4, we have a community pool season status report, and I believe Shannon taking us through this today. Welcome back.
Thanks. Shannon Clegg, Recreation Services Manager. So the community pool, we are scheduled to open on May 11th, which is Monday, and we are going to be open. That'll be the spring schedule, so it's kind of a little bit of a modified schedule. And then once school gets out, we're going to open for the summer schedule on June 8th, which will be a more in-depth, full summer schedule. Currently, we are training. We started yesterday with 5 lifeguards, and we have another training starting Friday night with another 10 lifeguards. The lifeguard training is about 34 hours for each training for each person. So it's a long process, and we're also hoping to do one more lifeguard training, a couple more staff members. So anybody that wants to be a lifeguard, we're still looking for a couple more. Questions?
What is the age range of the lifeguards, and how much do we pay an hour?
You have to be at least 15 years old, and we are now paying $12 an hour starting now.
Great. Sounds like a good summer job for some kids.
It's a great one.
I've received some complaints from citizens that we didn't open early, and my response to them after talking to City Manager Spittler was that we didn't have any lifeguards, so we couldn't open. Their response to me was, why was that not made public, that we were not going to have lifeguards for the early opening, and what could they do about it? One woman specifically said, I would have been a lifeguard. I used to be a lifeguard. I would have done it, and I didn't know what to tell her.
So, unfortunately, you can't just be a lifeguard. You have to go through the whole
Right.
34-hour training, and you have to find an instructor to do that. And then not only that, I was planning on opening earlier. What ended up happening is one of my lifeguards, at the last minute, ended up not being able to work. And we were so short-staffed that I only had, 1 or 2 people to go with. And at the end of last season, some of the pool managers' hours were used to lifeguard because we didn't have lifeguards in the fall because everyone left for college or went back to school. And so she's on her 1,000-hour kind of limit. So unfortunately, I'm a little short right now. Hopefully, going forward from here, we'll be able to kind of stay consistent because I'll watch hours, and hopefully we'll have more than enough lifeguards. That's what I'm going for.
So
Yep, we have a chronic problem of not getting enough lifeguards, and we're not the only city having this problem. It's everywhere. For some reason, people are struggling to get lifeguards. The CCPP is, offering scholarships to, um, you know, potential lifeguards that can't pay the fee if they meet income limitations, but we've found a way to pay for all that if they're committed to work at our pool. We've raised the hourly rate, and Shannon has done an awesome job, given she's only been here a month, to put the word out and beat down doors to try to get. But our objective is to ramp up. We would like to have 30 lifeguards at any one time. We're shooting for 14. That's the minimum to cover things, but it seems to be a problem. And I think it's a problem that we have to address all year round. We just can't deal with it immediately. And so that's one of our program objectives.
And we're going to continue doing lifeguard training because we do now have someone on staff that is an instructor trainer, to where we're going to continue hopefully to do lifeguard training throughout the year, not just before the season starts. And also with the junior lifeguard program, that's a program for 13 to 14-year-olds. And basically it's kind of a volunteer program, and it's getting them used to the pool. It's teaching them about lifeguarding. It's teaching them about, kind of pool safety, what to do, all this kind of stuff. And hopefully from there, we're going to foster that program more. I'm going to take it more to a volunteer type program, to where hopefully they'll grow with us. And when they do turn 15, they'll be able to work for us.
Thank you.
This doesn't preclude, say, people 30 to 40 years old becoming lifeguards, does it?
Nope.
'Cause
Anybody can do it.
that's the kind of pool that maybe we could have and start training them next winter for an early opening.
Yeah, anybody that wants to lifeguard can lifeguard. There is a certain swim test that they do have to pass in order to become a lifeguard.
Thank you.
So Councilmember Barnes could be a lifeguard.
Correct. Correct.
Would that I were 30 to 40.
Thank you. We do have the two newspapers here, who I would love for them to clearly communicate to the residents. It's not for lack of will or interest in opening the pool, but the city is now faced with exactly what the private sector in Calistoga is faced with, and that's a very small labor pool. And when we get into a situation, pardon the pun on the pool, when we get into a situation where it's specialized training involved, it complicates the matters that much more. I was a lifeguard for 2 years. It was the best job I ever had. So I would highly recommend it, and the pay is not so bad. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I mean, second best job. This is the best job I've ever had.
Pays a little different.
Everybody likes you when you're up here. Nobody complains. Just
Lifeguard
like
pays a heck of a lot better
It
than this.
does. The lifeguard pays a lot more. Maybe that's what we should all do. All right, we're going to move on, and I will seek a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor Dunsford. We have a second by Councilmember Kraus. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. City Clerk, thank you very much. There are no public hearings this evening, so we're going to move on to general government. Item number 6, consideration of modification of Stage 2 state water emergency provisions. The recommended action this evening by motion is to direct staff to, number 1, prepare a resolution that includes the expanded emergency water conservation regulations adopted by the State Water Resources Control Board on March 15th, 2015, and rescind resolutions 2014-013 and 2014-034, and number 2, prepare a program for City Council consideration that addresses commercial and industrial water consumers whose water usage is nearing or exceeds their baseline entitlement under the RMS. Taking us through this evening will be Director Kern, and prior to his start, most of you have seen, and the folks at home have also seen, Governor Brown last week with an executive order declaring the next stage of water emergency. As most of you know, residents, we were well ahead of this last year by adopting a stage 2 water emergency. Our conservation efforts have far exceeded the rest of the state of California, and at periods of time have surpassed what the governor requested of 20%. So we're doing a very good job, but it means we still need to continue that job. And the interesting thing about the governor's orders, as it looks like they're coming down, it's going to give the city the authority and the punitive options to correct for some behavior that has not modified, with strong suggestions being made by our water conservation team. With that said, and I've probably said too much, Director Kern, and took some of your work, please share with us where we're going on this.
Thank you. Good evening, Mike Kern, Public Works Department. As you mentioned on Friday, the governor declared a continued state of emergency related to the drought. I guess one of the acronyms that I've heard is, "Isn't it a beautiful day?" What a shame. But we're fortunate that we did have some rain today and yesterday, and we're looking forward to more.
I would add, every time we put this on the agenda, it rains.
Rain, so we should do it more often.
Shannon even mentioned if she knew that having a lifeguard class would make it rain, she would have done it sooner. So last year we adopted Stage 2 mandatory water conservation with the goal of 20%. The governor's declaration ups the ante by 5% more with the goal of 25%. Most of the things that are included in the state legislation's emergency order and the governor's decree have already been incorporated into our Stage 2 best management practices. There are a few things that we will need to incorporate, and hence the recommendation to direct staff to bring back a council item to rescind the 2 resolutions that have previously been adopted. Probably the most significant of the changes are not doing any outdoor irrigation prior to or 48 hours after a rainfall event. That will cause some people a little bit of difficulty because a lot of us have our irrigation system on a timer and we just set it and forget it. This will require some manual overriding when that occurs. The other 2 business-related ones are restaurants can only serve water to their patrons on request. We have that in our regulation already, so it's just a matter of outreach to the businesses and reminding them of that. The next one is that hotels must display prominently that their patrons can request their linens and towels not to be changed on a daily basis. Right now that's been a voluntary option that they have, but now it's mandatory that they have a placard or some kind of a place card prominently displayed in the rooms that the guests have that option. We will, I guess the other next one is that for new businesses and new home construction, all outdoor irrigation will need to be fitted with micro sprays or drip emitters. There will be no more allowance for pop-up sprinkler heads or sprinklers. With that, I think I would like to have Anna East come up and give you guys a little bit of an overview of her and her team's efforts and what they've been able to accomplish to date with the water rebate programs and their community outreach.
Welcome back.
Hi, Anis Hall, Water Conservation Program Manager. So we've been able to achieve quite a few things in conservation. I will start with the rebates and then go into some of the other activities that we have available. The main rebates that we have are the cash for grass. We started with 30 of those rebates available, and again, that's the $1 per square foot of turf removed and replaced with low water use drought-resistant plants. We have 31 of those rebates either completed or in progress. We decided to increase the number that we were offering. And so at that time, that leaves 3 available for this fiscal year. But we will be renewing and adding more come the next fiscal year. And for our toilet rebates, we started off with, I believe, 75 of those rebates available, and we were replacing toilets that were 3.5 gallons per flush or higher with the new level of efficiency, which is 1.28 gallons per flush. And so we have 42 of those rebates either in progress or completed, which leaves 18 remaining for the rest of this fiscal year. So we've seen a lot of interest and success in our rebate programs. And for actual calculations, that's 1.4 acre feet of potential savings from replacing out all of those old toilets, and 0.73 acre feet for replacing the turf and going into the low water use plants. So around town, a lot of people can see the changes that people are doing. A lot of times, instead of just the 750 square feet that we rebate, we're seeing people take out 1,300 or more square feet, so it's quite nice. Additionally, we offer water assessments. We'll come out and take a look at the fixtures inside the home, as well as take a look at the irrigation outside to see that everything is working properly, and also assessing the efficiency level. We've completed 99 of those residential assessments, as well as a few commercial assessments, and that is something that we are still offering. So if you suspect that you have a leak, or if your water bill is slightly high, we encourage you to contact us and let us know, and we'd love to come out and see what we can do. We had 250 water conservation kits, which have the low water use fixtures available. That was something we were offering to all residents, such as shower heads, low water use shower heads, and aerators, as well as items for the toilet to check for leaks or to reduce the gallons per flush. We started off with 250 of those, and we are now down to 9 for now. We will order some more supplies, but we do have a few of those left. So we have seen a lot of interest in our programs. We do have our website available in updated weekly, and whenever something new comes out, such as the governor's declaration. Again, our website is www.conservecalistoga.org. And on that, we have information for residences, for businesses, as well as for the schools. We do offer a variety of programs at both the elementary and the high school. We have provided for Zun Zun. They are a musical water conservation assembly program at the elementary school, which was attended by the 3rd through 6th grade. We heard great things about that. The students really enjoyed. We've also gone in and given presentations. We have a couple scheduled next month, and we also have done presentations with the Boys and Girls Club and other elementary students. We also have done presentations at the high school, and we have tabled out there letting them know about a contest that is coming up. It is our water conservation PSA contest. The deadline is the 17th of this month, so that's fast approaching. And I have heard that we have quite a few students involved already. There is one 9th grade class, which is Chu's class, who has taken this project on as part of their coursework.
This is where they're going to do a video or giving some message to conserve water. So we're challenging the students to come up with, on their own, some creative short video. And it's competitive with a prize at the end.
Yes, there'll be a nice prize at the end for the 1st and 2nd place winners for both junior high and senior high contestants. Additionally, the top videos, depending on how many we receive, will be featured at the 2015 Napa County Watershed Symposium on May 15th. So we won't have the winners announced just yet, but all the top videos that are turned in will be showcased at this symposium, amongst those in the water and watershed community. So that is an extra benefit for those students to have their videos seen by an even larger audience. And in addition to working with the schools, we've also worked with a lot of the community organizations, just giving presentations on what the current state of our water is, and different ways that they're able to conserve more water. So we still have all of these programs and activities in place, and we look forward to continuing to do so. Last year, we were able to, overall, for the year of 2014, receive a 14% reduction, but we did see much higher numbers in the latter months of the year, especially in December. For that one month, we saw a 24% reduction over 2013. We really want to see that continue into this year. We have seen a slight increase in water use this last month, so we just want to remind citizens and businesses that we are still in a drought, and so we want to continue those practices that we were doing so well earlier during last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anais. Any council members have questions of staff? Comment?
I do. With regard to restaurants serving water, I was approached a couple of times by a proprietor of a restaurant here in town with suggestion that they charge for water and possibly do something philanthropic with the proceeds from that water sale. If you like, I will give the name of that person to Mike Kern, and he can get a hold of you, and maybe you can contact this particular person. I hesitate to mention the name, but you guys know where I eat lunch, so.
Thank you. Any other council members?
Regarding the website, a couple people, they asked me about, because they submit their questions and they never receive answer. So I did it myself, and it's true. I submit all the information that is required, and I still don't receive any answer. So maybe there is something wrong that we need to check.
Yeah, I will definitely do so. We've checked the form entries, but maybe there's a broken leak somewhere. So,
So
yeah, check on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Two things, not related to what you're doing, but thank you very much for what you are doing. I think it's important to point out that the 25% increase or decrease mandated by our governor has a baseline of 2013. So our citizens are not going to be asked to do another 25% on top of the 20 they have already saved. It's 25% from a year ago, well, 2013. And secondly, there's a court case wending its way through the state of California, and I think it's at the Supreme Court right now, with a decision due within a few months, that could outlaw the tier way of charging for water. It would be found, there's been a major lawsuit filed by a concerned citizens group that says it's illegal way to charge for water. If they are successful, this will throw the state of California and many cities to a huge kerfuffle. How are we going to charge for using excess water? Have we made any plans or even thought about any of this? What we would do if that challenge is successful?
I'll call the city attorney and say, what do I do? We have a tiered system. Some cities do not, and Governor Brown, in an executive order, said, I want cities to go to a tiered system, meaning the more you use, the more you're going to pay per unit of water. And that's a long-standing practice to encourage conservation of water. And we all look at our water bill, and you can see you're in tier 1, you're doing okay. You start moving up to different tiers, and it costs a penny. So, or costs a lot, I should say. But so it contradicts what Governor Brown was advocating. And so we'll see what the courts do. Generally, I tend to find the courts do what the state agencies want them to do, but who knows?
This suit was filed 4 or 5 years ago before the drought started by a consumer advocate group, and said it's unfair to have tiered water rates because you're charging for a basic commodity. The more you use, the more you got to pay, and that shouldn't be allowed. That's the basis of the suit.
But as it stands today in the city of Calistoga,
have it.
You will be paying more as you use it.
If the city attorney says we can't do it anymore, then we'll have to redo our rates under Prop 218 and come back to the council, have a public hearing, and take those costs and flatten them all out to everyone's rates go up.
That would devastate water rates through the entire state.
Right.
But just so we're clear with everybody at home and everybody here, we are still on and will be on a tiered system, which, under the governor's executive order, will give this city a little more breadth in making sure that everyone is doing what they're supposed to conserve. A couple items on the water assessment. I've spoken to several people that have had the water assessment done by your team. Outstanding. They've learned a lot. They've been able to save quite a bit. And I've really appreciated the professionalism and the insight that you and your team have been able to offer. And it's a very easy thing to do. It's free of charge. So I would highly recommend that. Regarding the second piece on the legislation or in the executive order regarding hotels, the Chamber of Commerce has pre-printed 2,000 placards to be used in all the rooms in Calistoga. They look pretty, they send the message, and will help you be in compliance with what the legislation is believed to become, and those are free of charge for pickup. So feel free to call the chamber for those if you operate a lodging facility. Yes, Director Kern.
So, if you recall last year, we were unsure of what our water allocation was going to be. Initially it was 0, and then they bumped it up to 5%, with the caveat that that water was not available until September. Because of that, the city manager and I made a conscious decision that we were going to hold in reserve as much of our Kimball water as we could or felt was prudent, and basically live on our carryover water with the assumption that it could have gotten very dire towards the end of last year, and we may not have been able to deliver NBA water at all. And so we wanted to have something in our back pocket. This year is a little better. We're at 25% allocation. But one of the unintended consequences of managing our water supply is that as we're more reliant on the NBA, we're challenged with certain water quality parameters. A couple of years ago, the state modified one of their maximum contaminant level requirements related to disinfection byproducts. That's a compound that's formed when chlorine is added to highly organic water. And we know that the water coming out of the Delta is highly organic from multiple sources, runoff from the watershed, decaying organic material, grasses and plants and those things, plus just the habitat that live in the water itself. We have received a citation from the state Division of Drinking Water for exceeding those disinfection byproduct limits. And that's necessitating us to post a notice in the paper this Friday and also do a mass mailing to all of our customers explaining what happened, what we're doing to prevent it from occurring in the future, and that it's not, if it was a significant health issue, we would have had to notify immediately. But because this is something that we are attributing to primarily to the drought and the fact that when we bring water up from Jameson Canyon Water Treatment Plant, that water basically has to travel almost 38 miles to get here. So it's something that we're working on, but I wanted to let you know before it hit the paper that we did receive this issue. It's not an issue that is solely Calistoga's problem. With the change in the regulations, many agencies are struggling with the same issue. The city of Napa sent out notices earlier or last month with the same problem. So it's systemic in the Delta water, especially where we're taking it from.
That would come before us at a later date, correct?
Yes, probably the second meeting in May.
I have a question about residential users. I remember several years ago when we had the water wastewater rate committee meetings, and we were trying to figure out how to tier water use, particularly residential water use at that time. And I was surprised to hear that we have some really large water users in residential areas, residential properties. We couldn't learn the names or the addresses of those particular water hogs, but I'm aware that they are out there, and probably still are. And what measures can we take to curtail grossly excessive water use on? I mean, I realize we can, under the state's guidelines, that we can put an assessment on them, but I think some of these people can just write a check for it. And writing a check for overuse of water doesn't keep them from using the water. And so do we still have those kinds of people in town, or?
Yes.
I knew it.
The individuals that use, large quantities of water generally tend to have very opulent and lush landscaping,
which allows them to write a big check.
If not, small gentleman farmer vineyards. So that's just part of, I think, the historic culture of Calistoga. It's difficult to unwind some of those practices. If it gets to a point where it's really bad, what the state will probably do is do water conservation by allocation. The allocation would be something like no more than X number of gallons per resident on a property. And anything over that would then become, a significant penalty. There would be potentially an opportunity to make that penalty very, very significant, but you need to be mindful that once that is established, it's not, well, I can apply it to this person, but not this person. It's size fits all.
I think there's another way that you can do it without charging a lot of money to a person, although you probably would have to charge them for inserting a water restriction device at the meter so that they have enough water in gallons per minute that they could run a single shower, flush a toilet, and that's about it.
So from that perspective, yes, that will work. We would need to be, I would caution that with if domestic water supply is also the fire suppression supply for a fire sprinkler system, that we would not want to.
Which also goes around the water meter.
To the point where, so it's just, we would need to be careful on what we offer.
I think we should stress here we're talking worst case scenarios and what ifs in the worst case scenarios, not anything that we are considering.
Our water conservation team has outreached all the residential and high commercial users to explain the situation, and has had some success, but others just say, I'll pay the money, I don't care. And right now our regulations don't prohibit them from using as much water as they want to. But if things get worse, the council can adopt new regulations. Go from there.
The governor's executive order does give us more of that flexibility as we.
I got a question.
Go ahead.
Just a quick question, Mike. So last summer, the county, actually all the municipalities, in conjunction with the county, embarked on trying to work out an agreement with Solano County as it related to potentially sort of as a fallback emergency plan tying into Lake Berryessa. And I know there's a lot of hoops to make that effort happen. And I don't know how far they ever got, but is there talk about moving that forward at all at this time?
At our last joint meeting with I guess I'll call it the water TAC, twice a year we get together with their water TAC and our water TAC, we meet. Local water TAC meets monthly. We brought that subject up. It was not received well, primarily because there was some comment that Napa and some of its cities needs to do a better job of managing their water supply and making sure that their water needs are compatible with their development proposals, and that they're taking it seriously. There was also a little bit of you should use groundwater for more of your municipalities and just rely on NBA surface water and or coming and knocking on Solano's door for help.
And these comments were coming from Solano?
From some of the agencies in their water TAC.
Mm-hmm.
And we explained to them that the County Board of Supervisors has established a long-standing policy and actually written it into their general plan that groundwater shall be reserved for agricultural purposes, not for municipal purposes. So we're kind of caught in a general plan policy directive. They look at that as they opined that it was that the county and the cities should do better to manage their own local water supply rather than come to us for a bailout.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a discussion that we won't continue to have. It's just that there are some policy issues and perceptions from our neighboring counties that make that a difficult row to hoe.
Right.
As I recall, that suggestion of making that intertie for Lake Berryessa water, that the genesis of that was the state was going to put in a barrier above our water intake for the North Bay water, which would make it impossible for us to get North Bay water.
That was part of the discussion. The other was if the NBA just was not able to provide water, period, it would be challenged to supply our municipal water sources. The rock barriers in the Delta are again being considered this year. As the Solano Water Agency looked at what that intertie might be and what it would require, they identified some physical constraints in their own delivery system that caused them a head scratch moment to say, if all of our customers made a call on the Berryessa water, they probably wouldn't be able to deliver it due to some of those physical constraints. So putting us as part of their demand made overtax the system that much further.
Regarding your comment on conserving as much of the Kimball Water Dam as possible toward the end of last year, that was while releasing water for the fish, correct?
That's correct.
All right. We don't want to spark any more speculation on that. This is not a public hearing, but we will accommodate any public comment if anyone has any on this particular agenda item.
I have one more question of
Go ahead.
Director
And Mr.
Kern.
Cook, you're up first.
You had mentioned that you were going to send out a mass mailing on the recent problem. Could we also include in that mass mailing a set of the new regulations as proposed by the governor? Just so everybody's working off of the same group of regulations and requirements?
Timing-wise, I don't think we can, correct?
Yeah, we've already sent it to the publishers, and I don't want to get caught in a situation where I'm doing a compliance noticing and then it gets...
So in some future date, could we do that? Just
sure.
Put it in there
We'll
so
put a
everybody knows
utility billing
exactly
insert.
what the rules are. Thank you.
Good idea.
Mr. Cook, you had marked interest in this particular agenda item.
Doug Cook, 1447 2nd Street. Am I limited to 3 minutes?
You are.
Okay. In order of importance to me, item number 2 under recommendations regarding preparing a program to deal with industrial and commercial properties. Why limit your efforts to just those who are in excess of their baselines? There was no such limitation with regard to residential properties. Everybody's expected to do their part. And I think water conservation should be a obligation of every industrial and commercial property in town. And I say that recognizing that I manage several commercial properties, and I don't know where I stand for my properties. So I would encourage you in your notification process, again, since you haven't done the audit for a period of time, my owner, call I took just before the meeting, with him saying, I don't know what my status is. You say what you're going to say. So getting the notice out to all the property owners, regardless of their baseline status, I think is a very important process, this effort. Secondly, is the list of baseline violators available to the public? There's a certain amount of public peer pressure that might come into play if that known. Okay. With regard to the hotels and motels, thank you, Mr. Canning, for your work done by the chamber on getting those cards out. We use them at our properties, but I have to tell you that our visitors come from all parts of the world where many folks don't know what a drought is and don't recognize that we're in the middle of one. It is a challenge to do that, but we will continue to pursue that, and your assistance is appreciated. One of the items on page 2, line 47, says prohibit irrigation or ornamental turf on public street medians. Do we have any such medians?
Keep going and we'll address them all at the end so we're
Okay.
not using up all your
I
time.
don't think there are, so we may just drop that out. Thanks also to Mr. Kern and the Water Conservation Group for the status report. I found that very interesting and happy to hear that your rebate programs are working well. I was concerned about your statements regarding scrubbing the data, editing the data to drop out anomalous numbers regarding the high-use industrial and commercial properties. Again, I don't think that's necessary. Those are actual water use. To bring those issues to the attention, they can be pointed out as the anomalous data to folks you talk to. In general, I think it's okay to prioritize those users that are in excess of their baseline, but I don't think we should address all industrial and commercial users.
Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you.
I won't speak for you, Director Kern, but we are communicating the importance of water conservation to all customers. Some of them, as with some of our residents, don't hear it. So the onus is on us to try all forms of communication to do so. I believe the going after those who are far in excess of baseline is the 80-20 rule. They're the ones using the vast majority of the water when we speak commercially, but I'll let you address that one.
So if it's possible, one of the things we'll explore is putting on the utility bill, the commercial and industrial, what's your baseline and what's your average usage. So I think we can just do a line item across there. But you're right. I mean, if we've got the large users that are over their allocation, the code requires us to look into that. So that's the driver. The information is not public. It's private billing information. We don't release that. We never have, and the only time we would is if it was ordered by the court. I'm not aware of any median islands that we have within our road system. We do have landscape strips back of curb and between the sidewalk. And generally, though, those are private. As to scrubbing the data, maybe that was an ill-chosen word. There are provisions in our code where if somebody has a water leak they can demonstrate that it was a water leak, that they fixed it, and we will reduce their bill for that time frame that they had that water leak. It's a one-time grace, but it's important that if that was what caused them to go over their baseline, then we need to acknowledge it and thank them for fixing it, but not punish them by forcing them to acquire additional allocations.
Thank you. If we do have the opportunity to put onto the water bills the baseline and where you are to your baseline, I think that would go a long way in letting people know where they stand. And Mr. Cook, I shared your opinion on the guilt and shame, if not public shaming, of who the water hogs are. But I was quickly corrected by counsel that we cannot do that because I was looking forward to a full-page ad in both papers to say who's overusing, but that is private information. Thank you for the suggestion. Anyone else with a comment on this particular topic? Mr. McNay, should you so choose, please share with us your name and address. And your 3 minutes starts now.
John Doe, Dennis McNay, up the road there on Foothill. Just a couple of quick items. I was noticing in the payables, you know those payables?
Mm-hmm.
There was, in March, the end of March, there was only 2 payouts in the lawsuit actions, which is really limited down. I don't think we need to add any more by adding restrictors and water lines and publishing people's names. I think we'd best stay out of that area. But anyway, as far as city water, and restaurants and things, have you ever tasted the city water? Come on now. Do people drink that water down at those restaurants?
Good stuff.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I drink
Just
it
add
home.
a little lemon.
A little vodka? No, really. But anyway, another thing that was kind of brought up, the agricultural people are not having any cutbacks. That's correct, right? But the agricultural people, I notice we're having a lot of people digging new wells up and down the valley, which brings to mind usage of groundwater. And as far as I am aware, Nestle's is still pumping it out of the ground right and left. And what I see on the internet, I'm not going by endorsing the internet, saying it's true, that Nestle seems to have a lot of bad words about pumping water out of California groundwater right now because it's worth a lot more and they're bottling more. So I'm wondering, as far as our town well, Nestle's taking the groundwater, how much are they taking it? Is it monitored? Are they going to cut back? And how are we going to know if they are or are not? That's my question.
Excellent. In order, the groundwater issue, as Director Curran had made mention of, it's a long-standing debate in the county of Napa as to what municipalities are allowed to tap into and what agriculture is allowed to tap into. Generally speaking, agriculture is not to use municipal water sources for irrigation of agriculture. Municipalities are not to use groundwater for municipal services. Again, it's a long debate for several reasons, and one that goes all the way up to the state.
That wasn't my question.
No,
My question
you mentioned that first.
What is Nestle's doing?
I'm going to get to that one next.
When they take it to Healdsburg to bottle it?
I'm going to take it. I was answering your agriculture.
Okay.
Number 2, the Nestle well that is located, the 2 wells that are located at that parcel, I have some knowledge of that. Both of those tap into non-potable water. They are geothermal sources. They pull them out at about 170 degrees. They take the heat off them, and then they run them through 5 filtration systems. So what they're tapping into has 0 impact on the groundwater in the city of Calistoga.
I don't believe that's true. I think
You don't
if
have
we
to
get a
believe it, I can
hydrologist
tell you
here,
that.
we'll find that the groundwater goes down there and becomes non-potable.
It's all
Is what happens to it.
That's all the sparkling water. They're not tapping still water.
Geothermal.
Yeah, it's geothermal. They're stripping out the arsenic, they're stripping out the boron and dumping it in our
So if you
wastewater
talk to
plant.
some of the spa owners as well who have geothermal wells, they'll tell you that they're actually 2 different water sources, geothermal versus what's groundwater or potable water or fresh water.
Yeah, but the groundwater sits on top.
About
of
100 years
geothermal.
later, yeah.
And eventually,
I'm sure Nestle would be happy to provide you that information, but as I know it, it's not the same source. And geothermal wells, by the way, are regulated by a completely different agency in the state of California, gas and oil services.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about that,
Mm.
Mr. Mayor. If Nestle takes the water out, strips it out, takes the heat out, and then sells it as drinking water, why can't we do that?
Because it's something we could look into. It's an extremely expensive
So that was
process.
my question. I was going to say, I'm sure it is very expensive. It has to be done on a massive scale in order to make it economically feasible. That's why that plant is no longer in operation.
Correct. But they
Okay.
do process it here and ship it bottling, but an
But
extremely
it is an
expensive way.
alternative, although very expensive.
Correct.
Thank
Anyone else like to address the council on this subject? Mr. Quas, your name and address should you so choose.
Yet so fast. Michael Quast, 1300 Washington Street. Just a couple points. First of all, I don't know whether you realize, but you only target your rebate system to only 60% of your users, and you leave the 40% of business users off that scale. And you might get more savings if you include them in some of that. Another point was that I think when they made the newer water tier rate, they did make sure that those that were water hogs suddenly paid a surplus in pricing on that. So, but before they were subsidized. So that was the sad note that we had years ago that you guys were able to correct. So that's another point. Another thing is that now that when you have new housing, you have a water meter, you have to put in a fire suppression meter. It would seem to make sense to also include a third meter for watering so that one, you'd get an accurate flow of what went in the house and what was actually used for irrigation, and then also the people may not have to pay the extra amount for the sewer that isn't being pumped. And then you may also be able to, when you do have drought and emergency conditions, you can see the difference between what's really watered and what is really going as urgent needs the housing. And I think that would be a long-range plan that you might want to get into your goal setting to fulfill those things. It's not something that's going to happen today, but I think long-range plan for a lot of things that, one, can be monetarily efficient, and two, also give you better numbers as to what happened. I think also it would be helpful if your utility department made it clear, is the problem with going over just going to be counted on a monthly basis, or is it going to be counted on the year end as a total against the baseline? Because you can look at it both ways, and if someone is high for 2 months but then has conservation in other months, does it go back to help the months that were high that you may have done a penalty for? I mean, there are many ways to look at it, but I don't think we've been told clearly how that's going to be reflected as you come across for saving, things like that. But I think that if you do multiple things, it would be helpful to have clarity. Last thing, I think it helps to lead by example. And years ago, we tried to get the city to do a conservation program, which go anywhere, to show public what can be done, whether helping to cut down water at the school or locally. I mean, the public probably doesn't know, but all the grass that we have around this building station is all watered with regular city water. It's not reclaimed water. And there haven't been efforts to do that. I know that it was stated that you're going to try and change conservation plantings. But it would be nice if the city kept its own list of what it's been doing and how it cuts back and how they have shown what they can do, because I think it kind of shows, you're sharing in everybody else's pain, but if everybody is doing it, it would be nice to show regularly in the public, congratulations to the public, we saved 14% this month, 18%. But at the same time, I think you also have to protect the people so that they don't go, oh, you saved now, you've lost all your savings forever. You're never going to be able to use that again. I think you also have to tell people that you're going to preserve their baselines and not do. But I think leading by example and showing what you can do would be helpful also.
Thank you. Director Kern, we'll go backwards to forward. What actions has the city taken in terms of water conservation? I believe some of our buildings have been gone through, our irrigation systems adjusted, et cetera. You can default to Anais if you'd like.
Well, the water conservation team has gone through and done an assessment of all city buildings, and we are building into the budget things that we can change out. We're partnering with the master gardeners to do a demonstration planting in front of the police station to remove the grass and put in water conserving plants and drought tolerant plants. And that will be kind of like a show and tell. You know, here's different plant species that you can put in your landscaping. We're looking to expand our recycled water delivery to city parks. When the proposed footbridge goes over the Napa River from here to Pioneer Park, we intend to extend recycled water to that park. So those are the things that I can think of off the top of my head.
Do city buildings, each of the city uses, I should say, have meters, correct?
Yes.
So we could chart year over year where we are using, if the governor's request is baseline of 2013, to show where we are as we go through this process, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's a good suggestion. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. We'll close public comment on this item. Bring it back to the council for any further questions. Otherwise, the recommended action is by motion to adopt the two items requested by city staff.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kraus. We have a second by Councilmember Lopez Ortega. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, and you'll bring these recommendations back to us at a future date.
Correct.
Thank you, Director Kern. Moving on to item number 7, consideration of a resolution adopting the City Council goals, objectives, and priority projects for fiscal year 2015 and 2016. The recommended action this evening is to adopt the resolution. Taking us through this, should his voice hold out, will be City Manager Spittler.
Yes, you may have to help me out, Mayor. The council held workshops March 16th and 19th to develop the goals and objectives, priority projects for the next fiscal year starting July 1st. You do this each and every year. You meet with the department heads, the public, and try to assess what we've accomplished this fiscal year and how we should change our priorities for the next fiscal year. This also helps us prepare our budget, which is being prepared as we speak, to give direction to staff on how to build our budget. What is before you in your staff report are the revised goals, objectives, and priority projects for next fiscal year that came up out of the workshop. It is before you to adopt this evening. You can make any changes you see fit. We continue to look, the goals continue to stress fiscal responsibility, watching the general fund reserves as well as the water and wastewater enterprise funds. There's also interest in meeting community needs in terms of street improvements, programs on youth, and also improve recreation facilities and program, as well as additional affordable housing. There's a lot of public works capital projects in next year's goals, dealing with Kimball Dam safety, streets, bridges, and wastewater plant operations. Obviously, the drought continues to be an ongoing issue that affects all aspects of our service delivery, and city engineer and I are on a weekly basis looking in that situation. So I present to you your proposed goals and objectives for next fiscal year for adoption by resolution.
Thank you, City Manager Spittler. Council members, any questions of staff at this point? We did, just for the public's information at home, we did have a day and a half worth of workshops attended by all city council members and all city staff to review proposed goals, objectives, and priority projects. I will say that this year went relatively well. The heavy lifting was done some 3, almost 4 years ago, where we wrestled through it for almost 3 straight days. But I think it shows that strategically, the goals and objectives we have continue year to year with some minor adjustments. I will open this to the public for any questions or comments on the goals and objectives being presented here for consideration. Mr. Cook, you had this as one of your items.
Thank you, Doug Cook, 1447 2nd Street. The biggest issue in my mind here, and some of the questions I asked earlier, is the issue of a target of 20% surplus, not surplus, backup money to water and wastewater funds. I find that to be perhaps a little over-optimistic. I won't know, as you won't know until you actually run all the numbers. I'm very concerned that the impact of the drought in terms of its reduction in our efforts to conserve water, in terms of its reduction in income to the state. The reality that we're going to be spending quite a bit of money responding to cease and desist order years and other challenges that they face in terms of water supplies, et cetera, may make that very hard to do. It's a great goal. I applaud the goal, but I think realism when we get more numbers to reflect that. With regard to the priority projects, first page of the Exhibit A lists number 3, adopt economic development measures and incentives to promote beneficial new development, businesses, and job growth. And I would very much appreciate knowing what the definition of beneficial is in that sentence.
Okay.
Not detrimental.
Other questions, and we'll address.
Quick question that's easily answerable, I hope. Next meeting that focus on those budget numbers. But have that date. Right?
Get you that in a second.
And
It's in May. I can't remember offhand.
Got
but it will
time to
be
go.
well noticed, I'm sure.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And then on the street issue, we've had a lot of discussion in the past about the street prioritization program for repairs. The only thing I see in the goals is under goal 3, number 4, support efforts to fund bridge and street maintenance repair. Talked a bit about the processes that are going forward with the bridges, involvement with Caltrans, et cetera. But I've not heard anything for quite some time on our plan for the rest of the streets that should get folded into the process. Under infrastructure development, I think you should have a goal that addresses compliance with the regulatory requirements, particularly the cease and desist order. I know it's on your list. Mike Kern's doing a lot of work in that area, and I think it should be a priority.
Excuse me, Mr. Cook, where were you on that one? Which item?
I'm under the infrastructure section, goal 3, priority projects. It lists 10 projects.
Right.
I see nothing that
Okay, thank you.
mentions the cease and desist order and the work associated with that beyond the storage pond.
And hold on, we're going to wait till we're all through them all.
Okay, and again, I apologize, I wasn't at the meeting. A general question would be, which of these objectives and priority projects are new, if any, or are most continuations from prior last year's work on this effort? When I looked at that, struck me as I didn't recall seeing it in a year ago, and I could be my memory. Under goal number 5, first priority project is work with local schools and on youth gang and substance abuse issues and support the Boys and Girls Club activities. I'm not as aware of that issue as I should be, perhaps, but it seemed to come out of the blue to me with all the other things. And under expand and improve recreational facilities, I think those are all great projects, but I think there needs to be a little bit of, for lack of a better term, organization of priority projects 2, 3, 6, and 8. I know this may not be, I'm an engineer, so excuse me, but generally I put things done first up front or have the highest value, and it seemed like we have so many things going on, but we don't yet have a need assessment. So I'm just going to encourage you to get that move.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Starting from the top, regarding under the goal of 20% reserve for enterprise funds, that's considered a best practice by a municipality of our size and of the type of water and sewer system we have. The reality of the situation is, yes, we're going to strive for that, but we realize that we're going to have to make priorities on spending as that comes along. That would not prevent us from having to make some of the expenditures that we're going to need to, whether they be compliance with state orders, whether they be repairs to current structures. As you recall, starting some 3 years ago, our goal was to get to a 30% reserve on our general fund, and it took us just about 3 years to get there. So certainly not an overnight, but it is something that we will strive for. As it stands today, we have 0 in reserve on our enterprise fund, which is water and sewer. It's not a good place to be should you have a water main break, et cetera. So that does remain a goal and something to strive toward. Regarding priority projects and what is beneficial development or job growth, I think that's circumstantial based on what opportunities and potential development projects present themselves to the city. Do I see another resort project coming to the city in the near future? Probably not, based upon what we have coming in the dockets moving forward. But it has always remained a goal and a priority for the city to remain open to opportunities that would overall benefit the community. Now, we do have some differences of opinion or perspective on what a beneficial development or project or job creation situation would be, but that's why we have these meetings to go through and discuss as those present themselves. But as it stands today, there's nothing in front of us. Streets. Director Kern, you had your chance to go home and you didn't. Could you step up for a second? So the prioritization of street repairs, there was already a multi-year program that's on, and I'm completely, the acronym for how you grade our streets is completely escaping me.
PCI index?
PCI index, pavement
Condition
index, is what we use to set priorities for which streets we would tackle. We have, as you are probably aware from following these meetings, we have increased the amount of funding in this fiscal year, and we will look at increasing the funding in next fiscal year for street and sidewalk repair. And it's through Mike and his team to bring back to us which streets get prioritized, and there are dozens of factors that go into that. But that is one of the big factors that go in there. Just because we don't call it out here, it's in the normal course of the business that Public Works does, and I'll stop talking now, Mike, if I've gone too far. Which projects did we have this fiscal year?
What we recommended were reconstruction of Washington from Girard to Lincoln, and then
which is the post office up to Lincoln Avenue.
Then overlay Washington from Lincoln to Berry. That'd be a grind and overlay. And then we also identified probably close to 30 residential streets for slurry seal, and that is planned for next fiscal year.
But also this fiscal year was Lake Street, I believe.
We looked at a segment of
Lake Street. A segment of Lake Street.
That's correct.
Okay.
We did a lot of sidewalks too.
We've done some. We spent $25,000 evading trip and fall hazards within Sector 2 and and we've developed a partnering program, a 50-50 cost share, where if there is a residence or a business that has failing sidewalks, we will partner with them to replace those.
All right. Under infrastructure.
The simple answer that no street repairs, street maintenance activities program have been completed so far this year, or any expected to be done in 3 months.
And the first answer is no. I'm not aware of any that have been done, and yes, we do plan on doing some this year.
Regarding the infrastructure and why compliance is not one of our priorities, we have no choice. We have the compliance orders and mandates and requirements, regulatory requirements that are forced on us by the state, many of which, as you know, come without adequate or any financing, and we're one of many municipalities that have to deal with that. Regarding goal number 5, which was the working...
Before you move on to that,
yes, sir.
Goal 3, item 8 says develop and implement a strategy to address the issues with wastewater plant operations as identified in the cease and desist orders from the state. So that is a priority.
With the CDO. Okay.
Right.
Goal number 5, regarding the youth, gang, and drug awareness programs. Those were in last year's. They were just reworded. And it's continuing with our police department's outreach through the school system and the Boys and Girls Club, and that's making it a healthier, safer community for kids. What did I miss? What did you have? Anything, Richard? All right. Thank you, Mr. Cook.
Thank you for your direct answer.
Yep. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Not seeing any movement. I will close. Nope. Mr. Quast.
1300 Washington Street. To follow up on Mr. Cook's comment, I think it's really important for us to understand when you can't reach the goals for the water and wastewater enterprise fund and you have a looming big charge to pay whatever it is, $500,000 or more because of attorney fees that were in the suit. I think it would be helpful for water users to know if we have no idea yet until we see the budget, did we go into the red this year by conserving this much water? And if we continue to conserve even more to reach the full 25% or 28 or 10% more, you will get less money to your enterprise funds. Is the plan with the lack of funds to be that the enterprise funds will charge more, or is the plan that the city general fund is going to, in short term, help out enterprise funds? Because if it's all going to go back on the users immediately to have to pay for those things, I think you're going to find conservation doesn't happen to the level you want because they just assume pay for it in water usage rather than paying to use less and pay more. So I think that would be a very helpful thing to know early on and should be part of your goals to let us know what your plan is should that happen. Second of all, when Caltrans deals with the Lincoln Avenue Bridge and such, can we let the public know and have some early on public comments? Because I think it would be important to flush out a lot of things for that bridge. I mean, that bridge creates probably the biggest reason we have a flood area because it's the bottleneck on the Napa River. And I hate seeing we do have flooding rain that the city staff has to protect the bridge when yet the bridge is a Caltrans entity. They're not out there with the backhoe trying to make sure tree things go underneath. No propane tanks, and that guy's trying to do a really great job, but a bridge that was 2 feet higher or 5 feet wider could create a situation where we don't have the issue of flooding and could be a lot safer.
Thank you. Item number 1 regarding the budget plan, how we plan current fiscal. There have already been 2 budget presentations this fiscal year, as we do every year, keeping people updated. In there, we capture all the impacts, either what has happened or potential impacts to the enterprise fund as an example. And we've outlined clearly for the community where that risk is. Whether they be legal actions or whether they be the conservation. We did set aside $300,000 or $500,000 for conservation.
$500,000.
$500,000 for lost revenues based upon conservation, and then we did give projections on what would happen for legal matters. The reality of the situation is, if we're not allowed to have our enterprise fund go in the red, unlike the state, the municipalities have to cover all their costs. If we happen to have a reserve in the general fund that needs to be loaned to the enterprise fund, that's the decision that the council will make. That will be very clearly outlined in our budget discussions, which we have coming up in the month of May, correct, Richard?
Yes.
Which are obviously all public meetings, open for discussion on what we should or shouldn't do or what we're thinking about doing there. Regarding the Lincoln Avenue Bridge, they've already done, Caltrans in conjunction with the city and Public Works have already done quite a bit of community outreach. They had a well-attended and very informative community meeting in this room where they went through the design plans, the intents, etc., from everything about how the construction was going to work to what kind of bridge they were choosing, for what reasons, the heights, etc., and the impact. And it allowed for a significant amount of public comment. I do know from some of the people who were at that meeting who expressed concerns that they've already been engaged by Caltrans since that meeting to address some of their concerns. So if you do have further questions, I'm sure Director Kern can put you in touch with the project manager for Caltrans. But to this point, I've been pretty impressed with their level of outreach. We may not always get the answer we want, but at least they're giving us answers. Is there anyone else? All right, I'll close the public comment, bring this back to the council for any further comment by the council or consideration to pass the resolution as presented or discuss the resolution as presented. We'll entertain a motion on it.
I'll make a motion we adopt the resolution.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Kraus. We have a second by Councilmember Barnes. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. There are no further items. We will adjourn to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council on Tuesday, April 21st at 7 p.m. in this meeting. Thank you and have a nice evening.